Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into the world of Bob Camblin today. He's this Houston artist, and his work is fascinating.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We've got all sorts of stuff to look at with him. Like,
Yeah.
we have some of his writings and even a YouTube video that analyzes his painting, Change the Distance.
Oh, and that book, right, the one that features some of his
Yeah,
work.
exactly.
So it's almost like a puzzle, right?
Right.
You got all these pieces of Camblin's thoughts, his art.
And we're going to try to put it all together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See if it makes any sense.
And it's not just about the art, it's about understanding, like, his philosophy on life,
Mm.
on creativity and what it all means.
Right, right. So where do we even start? I mean, there's so much here.
Well, one thing that really stands out from his quotes is how much he focuses on nature. He's got this great line, not a leaf moves, and yet we all feel the cool breeze. It's like he's saying everything is connected, even the small things.
Yeah, and you can totally see that when you look at his art too, right? The way he uses nature in his pieces. Like, he's got these landscapes, but they're kind of,
Dreamlike.
yeah, dreamlike. They always have this hidden symbolism too.
It makes you think about Zen Buddhism. Camblin was really into that, and finding meaning in the everyday, being present, that's all very Zen.
Right. Which makes me think about that quote where he talks about the Buddha. You know the one, right? When Zen monks say that we are always the Buddha, but we keep forgetting it most of the time. I knew that, but now I know it.
Yeah, yeah, like a big realization for him.
Totally. And for people who don't know much about Zen, can you break that down a bit? What does that even mean?
So basically, Zen says we all have this Buddha nature inside us, this potential for enlightenment and wisdom, but we get distracted. Life gets in the way.
So Camblin is saying we have what we need already. We just got to remember it.
Exactly. And remembering, coming back to that, that's a big theme in his work.
And that brings us to paradox, right? Which is another huge part of Zen. Camblin's work is full of it. Like, how can something be empty and full at the same time?
Right, right. Or how can change be the only constant thing? It's like he's always wrestling with these ideas.
And you see it in his art literally, too, with those Enso circles he uses all the time.
Ah, good point.
Wait, though, maybe we should explain what those are. Some people listening might not know.
Oh, yeah, of course. So an enso is this circle, and it's drawn in just one or two brush strokes. And in Zen, it represents a lot of things: emptiness, enlightenment, the universe, even how everything keeps cycling, coming back around.
Wow, okay,
So,
so they're pretty important.
yeah, definitely. And Camblin uses them to play with those contradictions we were talking about. They're empty, but also full, finished, but also open.
Kind of like life itself.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we've got Camblin as this artist who's inspired by nature, by Zen, but there's this one piece I want to talk about. Change the Distance. It's a watercolor.
Oh, yeah, that one's amazing. And we actually have a few descriptions of it, so maybe we can, like, paint a picture with words for our listeners.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So imagine this kind of broken up landscape, almost dreamlike. You've got these pyramid shapes, these orbs, like Enso circles, and they're all floating in this big space.
Right, and it's not a clear space either, right? It's not like
A defined background.
yeah, like a landscape or anything. It's just this vastness.
Exactly. And at the bottom of the painting, Camblin actually stencils in the words, change the distance.
It's like he's daring us to look closer, isn't it?
Or maybe even to change our own perspective on things.
Yes. And the way he uses those orbs with images inside them, it's so cool. You've got one with a snake's head, another with a human face, and then a third one that's all blurry, almost dissolving.
What do you think those mean?
Oh, man, that's the big question, isn't it? It's like he's showing us a change happening, like a journey. The snake, maybe that's like our basic instincts, the stuff we don't even think about.
Interesting. So then the face.
That feels more human, obviously. But there's something going on there, you know? It's not just a happy face. It's like it's thinking or maybe even struggling with something.
And then that last orb, the one that's fading away.
That one is like beyond words.
You think it's about transcendence?
Maybe like
Yeah.
letting go of who we think we are and becoming part of something bigger.
Which brings us back to Zen again, that idea of being connected to everything.
Totally. And the orbs being like Enso circles, that emphasizes that it's not a straight line, this journey. It's a cycle, you know?
It's about the process, not the destination.
This is where it gets even cooler, actually. We have this YouTube video that talks about change the distance and how it connects to two specific hexagrams from the I Ching.
Oh, wow, the I Ching. That's
That old Chinese book people use for, like, fortune telling.
right, right.
The video says the painting is like hexagram 24, which is about returning, renewal.
Huh.
seeing things with new eyes.
And it also connects to hexagram 56, The Wanderer, which is all about adapting to change and seeing things from different angles.
So he's mixing all these ideas together, Eastern philosophy and his own art. It's pretty amazing.
It is. And don't forget, there's that book excerpt, too. The one that compared Camblin to all those other artists, like Paul Klee and Leonora Carrington and even Ed Ruscha.
Right, so it's not just Eastern stuff, it's Western art traditions, too.
Yeah.
He's blending it all. Symbolism, surrealism, even conceptual art.
Makes you wonder if he was thinking about all that when he was painting, you know? Or if he was just expressing himself and it happened to line up with these different styles.
That is a good question. I guess we'll never know for sure.
But one thing is for sure, Change the Distance is more than just a pretty painting. It makes you think, it makes you question things, it makes you look inside yourself.
Maybe even change the distance in our own lives, right?
Exactly.
This is a great place to stop for now, but there's so much more to talk about with Bob Camblin, so we're really digging into Change the Distance. But what do you think Camblin is trying to tell us with this painting? Like, what's the message for people looking at it?
Ooh, that's a good question. And honestly, I think different people are going to see different things in it. You know, it depends on your own experiences. But for me, it's about how we limit ourselves by only seeing things one way.
Literally and figuratively.
Right. Like we get stuck at a certain distance and forget there are other ways to see things, other possibilities.
Yeah, I get that. And Camblin's saying we need to break free from that to shift our perspective, right?
Exactly. See the world with fresh eyes.
Makes me think about how Camblin talked about the creative process, too. He had some pretty strong feelings about being an artist, especially in a culture that's all about buying and selling.
Oh, yeah. He did not hold back on that. Remember that quote where he talks about art being disposable, how it's all about what's new and trendy?
Yeah, it's like he called it the disposable art culture or something.
Right. It was a real critique of the art market and how artists are always pressured to come up with the next big thing.
It's like he was saying, you finally find your style, your voice, and then the market changes, and you got to change with it.
Well, it can be so exhausting for artists. I mean, it's hard enough to make good art, let alone worry about what's going to sell.
And then there's that other quote. In a time of consumer art, to make something truly unique in its intimacy.
That one really stuck with me too. It's like he wanted to create something real, something with depth, not just something that's popular for 5 minutes and then forgotten.
He wanted people to think, to feel something when they looked at his work.
Exactly. It's not about just looking, it's about connecting with the art on a deeper level.
It's like a totally different approach to art.
It is. He wasn't afraid to be different, to go against the grain.
Which is probably why he had such strong opinions about critics, too. You know, that quote where he compares them to.
A legless man who teaches running.
That's the one. I mean, it's harsh, but you got to admit, it's kind of funny, too.
Yeah. And it makes you think about who gets to decide what's good art. Who has the authority to judge.
Right, right. And he's saying a lot of these critics, they don't even understand what it takes to create art in the first place.
And that reminds me of that other quote where he talks about the mystic switch. It's like, you can't teach that, It's got to come from within.
It's that spark of inspiration, that moment where everything clicks.
And you can't force it, you can't manufacture it, it just happens.
So we've got this artist who's inspired by Eastern philosophy, by Western art. He's challenging the art world. He's embracing contradictions. It's a lot to take in.
It is, but that's what makes Camblin so fascinating, I think. He makes you think, he makes you question things, and he makes you appreciate art on a whole new level.
And it all comes back to that idea of changing the distance, right?
Exactly. Looking at the world with new eyes, being open to new experiences, and challenging the way we normally see things.
So for everyone listening, how does that idea of changing the distance resonate with you? What areas of your life could benefit from a fresh perspective? Think about that as we continue our deep dive into Bob Camblin. Wow, we've covered so much about Bob Camblin. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. From his art to his philosophy, it's all so interconnected.
But if you had to pick just one thing for people to take away from his work, what would it be? What's the most important message he leaves us with?
That's a tough one. There's so much there, But I think one of the biggest things is that he encourages us to, really look at the world differently, to change the distance, as he put it.
And what does that even mean, for people who are just hearing this for the first time? What does it mean to change the distance in our own lives?
Well, how often do we go through our day just kind of like on autopilot? not really seeing what's around us. We're busy, we've got our routines, our thoughts.
We miss things.
We do. And Camlin wants us to break out of that, to actually pay attention, to see the beauty that's already there.
It's like we're walking around with blinders on sometimes
Exactly. And his art, it helps us take those blinders off,
to see the bigger picture
to see the connections between things, even if they seem totally random at first.
and to question things, right?
Yeah.
Not just what we see, but what we think we know.
Oh, absolutely. He wants us to question those stories we tell ourselves, those beliefs that might be holding us back,
It's about breaking free from all that.
and opening ourselves up to new possibilities.
I keep thinking about how he manages to talk about such big ideas in his art, but it never feels like he's, lecturing us.
Right. He's not preachy at all.
He just presents these ideas, and it's up to us to figure out what they mean to us.
And that's what makes it so powerful. It's not just about looking at pretty pictures. It's about like an inner journey.
It sparks something in you, makes you think, makes you wonder.
And that's what good art should do, right?
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive on Bob Camblin, I just want to say I really appreciate artists who push us to think outside the box, to see the world in new ways.
Me too. He reminds us that there's always more to discover, more to learn, more to explore.
Yeah, and that's pretty amazing. So to everyone listening, I hope you'll check out Bob Camblin's work if you haven't already. And remember, change the distance. Look closer, question things, be open to new experiences. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.